Make some noise for Dr. Devin Walker. All right. So it is my honor to be able to introduce Resa Lovelace. She is you're already hyped. You're already hyped. They know you in these streets. You known in these streets.
I am. It seems like it.
So should I finish the intro?
Yeah, I think you should.
All right.
The students may not know.
Okay, some folks don't know. All right, so Assistant Athletic Director at the University of Maryland, as well as the CEO and founder of RBO Theory. You see it, shining, entrepreneur, business owner. And also I would consider a colleague and a friend over the last 6 years. We met here at this particular conference. We had a dope conversation about how we could continue to improve and be more inclusive. And so to have you up here now as a keynote speaker, I'm hella proud of you. So please, can we welcome her once again? So, Resa, can you just tell me a little bit about your story, your background professionally, and like how did you end up on this stage here today?
Well, first I want to say thank y'all for having me here. Like Devin said, I came here 6 years ago and immediately had a conversation with him and Dr. Moore about how do we create a more inclusive space for LGBTQ Black folks. As a product of PG County, Maryland, so my DMV folks, I went to a historically Black college, and being openly gay at a historically Black college was not easy. And so I think that is what drove me to be on this stage today, is thinking about how can I create spaces for student athletes who identify in the LGBTQ community to be openly themselves in college, but more importantly in sport, right? I struggled through my 4 years of college, and I remember going into college thinking, I want to work in sports. I don't know what change I want to make, but I know there's changes that need to be made. And so for the last 13 years, I've had a really great opportunity to lead through my authenticity. I've had schools turn me down from jobs because they would tell me that who you are and who you represent is not welcome in this space. And so I think about what that harm is doing to not only professionals that want to work in sports, but our current students who are in this area.
Wow, thank you. So can you tell us a little bit, right now, I mean, there's bills being passed. You got folks like Bob Huggins popping off on the radio. Like, can you talk a little bit more about how the larger socio-political climate around LGBTQIA issues is impacting athletic departments and student athletes?
Yeah, so if y'all don't know, there are almost over 500 bills in all 50 states trying to ban LGBTQ students and transgender student athletes. That's a problem. Devin and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. When we talk about banning people, and we're talking about banning LGBTQ people, like my immediate thought process is, well, who's next, right? If we ban our LGBTQ community, are you gonna come after Black folks next? Because you continue to tell us that we're not welcome in certain spaces. And so as I continue to do my homework and my research, my goal is to work with athletic departments to say, be aware of what's happening in your state and make sure that when you send student athletes out to other states where these bans are, that you're aware of the political nature that you're sending them into, because there are going to be harmful moments that happen to these students. And if we're not in athletics prepared to take care of our students, what else are we doing? And you mentioned the Bob Huggins thing. When I saw that was rough, right? I think about, you gave him a 2 to 3 game suspension, you docked his pay $1 million, but what does that say to not only the student athletes that go to West Virginia, but the students who go to West Virginia? That means, why would I support your athletic department if you are allowing this person to be that harmful in a very open and public space?
Tell me, what do you think is worse, his individual act of bigotry or the institutional response to what he said?
To be very honest, I think both. I think, they said, okay, well, we're gonna send him through education, right? What does that education look like? Who is doing the education? If it's coming internally from your athletic department or your institution, are we really making change? Because you didn't really do enough to me. You didn't go far enough. And I think from an institution perspective, they could have gone a little bit farther. They could have fired him. Other people have been fired for far less, and you chose not to. Again, I understand it's West Virginia, and so again, that political nature comes into some of those decisions. But if I'm a current student, or if I am being recruited to this institution, I don't want to go there. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for my Blackness. It's not safe for, and I know he also attacked Catholic individuals. It's not safe from a religious perspective, and it's not safe from an LGBTQ perspective.
Let's talk about institutions here. So, do you feel like, let me think, like an institution like BYU, right? A religious-based institution. Do you think they're entitled to their own value system that might not be inclusive of members of the LGBTQIA community?
Absolutely. I mean, that institution in particular is governed by their religious tenets, whatever those religious tenets may be. I think it is incumbent of us as athletic administrators and coaches to be honest about what those are. Because when you're recruiting students, and yes, every coach wants the best athlete that they can get, they're not going to be that honest about, what the religious tenets are that these student athletes are going to have to live under for 4 to 6 or 7 years, depending on how long you want to stay in college. And if we're not being honest, how are we restricting those students once they appear on our campus? Again, I think athletics talks about we are a family, this is an inclusive environment, but are we really when we're not setting them up for holistic success when they come to our institutions?
Even in my own process, like as I was preparing for this conversation, I was excited and I was thinking about, you're an openly queer woman. You do a lot of work with the LGBTQIA community. So in my mind, I'm starting to think, they got these trans bills being passed. And I immediately started to put a box around you, right? Like, I got to ask her about, LGBTQIA issues or trans issues, or you are a student development specialist, right? So I'm wondering for you, do you ever feel like you get boxed in and your work gets missed in terms of what you can offer an entire athletic department or what you can just offer to student athlete development in general because of the fact that you're an openly queer woman?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I went to an institution that was in the South, and I applied for this job, got there, showed up in my masculine suit because I'm very masculine presenting, and the person who was to hire me said, listen, who you are is not a good fit in this space.
What school is that? Nah, I'm just playing with you.
They're here, so I'm not going to call them out because they're here. That person no longer works there, but the school is here. And I found that very demeaning to me as a professional, right? So you talk about the ability and the work that I do in the student athlete development space. Again, I wonder how many students missed out on a great opportunity of the work that I could bring them. When I first got to the University of Oregon, where I was prior to coming to Maryland, one of the first things that they asked me to do was to put on an LGBT inclusion workshop. And my initial reaction was, are you asking me because I'm openly gay, or are you asking me because of my skill set? So again, I often have to think about why are you asking that question versus just knowing that my skill set is what's needed. And so I had the opportunity to do the work there, and I'm very proud of the legacy that I was able to leave behind. But I appreciate what Maryland was able to offer me when I got to that institution because I got to create their student athlete development program. They didn't have anything prior to me arriving there. And now we're booming, right? We have one of the best fellowship programs for our student athletes in this country, and we got 100% placement rate in jobs and graduate school, right?
Oh, we gotta make some noise for that. That's congratulations. That's big. That's big.
So again, when I think about the totality of my skill sets, yes, you're getting an authentic Black queer woman at your institution who has a Progress rainbow flag in her office to know that our openly gay students can come in here and feel safe, but you're also going to get somebody who is thinking about the holistic well-being of the student, career readiness, leadership education, and identity development.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit about your skill set, what you can offer. So what does an institution get when they bring in RBL theory?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to work with a number of schools that are in the audience right now, and I think if you ask them, they would tell you you're getting somebody who's going to be very honest with you. And it starts with assessments, right? Yes, you can do internal assessments. There are a lot of great professionals in this space who are doing great work, but sometimes you need an outside perspective to come in and really key in on what are some of those issues. So we're going to talk about assessments up front. We're going to have not only the student athletes be assessed, but we're going to have the staff staff be assessed too. I think a lot of times when we look at DEI work in athletics, we look solely at the students. We need to also look at the people who are leading the students. And then we talk about what is the 2 to 3 year strategic plan after that, right? Again, the rate of athletics right now, the turnover that we're seeing in the professional space, I wouldn't go beyond a 3-year plan because of that turnover and the workplace culture. We're gonna talk about all of those things, and we're gonna implement, here's what you're gonna do 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We're gonna talk about the education, which I can also do myself, but there are also colleagues around the country that I can say, you need to bring them in because they're the expert in this, versus always just utilizing my skill set. So I think about the totality of the work that needs to be done.
Cool. Thank you. What's the vision for RBL Theory? Where do you want to end up?
Shoot, I say 5 years from now, I would love to have transformed not only athletic departments, but also conferences. Again, I think we talk about and we zero in on what each athletic department is doing, but what are we doing from a conference level too? How does the conference also institute some things at their individual institutions? And really when you ask about the vision, it is R, reflecting through our experiences, B, creating belonging through conversations, and L, learning through programming. That's what the vision of RBL Theory is.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. You know, if you had a wand, a magical wand, right? And you got to wave it over college athletics, what would you change? What needs to happen?
Interesting enough, we're following 2 panels, one of Ivy League Black student athletes talking about their experiences at a PWI, and then we had these young women up here talking about mental health. You know, in a world of athletics right now, I think we're solely focusing on NIL and how students can make money. Y'all, I want y'all to get y'all money, but at the end of the day, that money is not going to always make you happy. So I would like to see us think about the workplace culture in which we're centering our students. Again, I think about, again, we talk about this language, we are a family, this is an inclusive environment, but it's really not. It's very exclusionary in a lot of ways, right? You know, I was in the Hoover app yesterday, and y'all students are great, y'all are wild at the same time, but there was a group entitled, I think, LGBTQ ? And there were a lot of students in there that said, oh my God, I thought I was the only one.
What's that mean to you?
That was painful to see because it brought me back to my time of being a student athlete, thinking I was the only one. So one, I want to applaud the LGBTQ students who are here. I see y'all.
Let's make some noise.
I see y'all. I want y'all to know y'all are heard. Feel free to find me after. But I really, it pained me to see that they felt like they were the only ones in this space. Again, when we talk about our Black community, LGBTQ folks are often missing from the conversation. So how do we make them more visible in this space is really what, for me, I want to have happen.
Certain. And you know, for me, when I saw that as well, it made me think of like, this is what they must be carrying from their home institutions, from their own athletic departments, feeling like they can't show up and be their full self. So when they see a group, they're like, oh, finally, I'm not the only one. And it's like, as athletic departments, what are we doing to make everybody feel seen, feel whole, like they could show up in their full self? Because how do we ever get to equity if people don't show up as their full self? How can you ever articulate what you need if you can't be your whole self? I want to thank you, Resa, for the impact that you've had on college athletics in general, the impact that you've had on this conference, and even the impact that you've had on me in our interpersonal conversations. Very much appreciate you as a human being, as a person, the work that you do, and the influence that you are going to continue to have in college athletics. Can we give it up for Resa? Any parting words?
Final words, I would just say, listen, show up as who you are. If you feel like you're in a space where you can't be who you are, please now make those decisions that will change you forever. Again, I know you want to stay at your institution because you may have a great opportunity to win a national championship. Well, what is that national championship going to do for you 10 years from now when you have been harmed and you can't be your whole self? So that's all I have to say.
That's that. All right, thank you.
One more time, make some noise for both of them, y'all. One more.